by awakening in you the consciousness by which you will be able to find out how this development can take place through knowledge. This is the second aspect of knowledge. So the teacher and the student come together and pray, please protect me by revealing to me the true nature of knowledge. And you pray to the Supreme Being, let us come together and jointly engage ourselves in this exercise of cultivating knowledge and wisdom. The teacher and the student should cooperate with one another in order that knowledge can be cultivated. The student doesn't come to the class with a prepared mind, and the teacher also doesn't go to the class fully prepared. They can never communicate properly with each other so that knowledge is cultivated and developed. And lastly, the teacher and the student pray together with the Supreme Being, let there be no disharmony between us. Let us not hate each other. Let there be sweet relationship between us. This is the most vital in the present age in all the education institutions. Every day you see the Vice Chancellor being killed and the teachers are being insulted. What kind of education is this? How can a student insult a teacher who is Acharya, is a guru, is imparting knowledge? The Upanishad says there could be a reason why the student and the teacher could have a disharmonious relation. There could be. Shankaracharya, the famous Acharya, writes and shows such a practical commentary on this. What could be the reason? The student could think the teacher is coming to the class absolutely without preparation, just to while away his time. And the teacher always thinks it's my faith that I'm going to teach these boys, and girls are absolutely useless, they know nothing. So there's no shraddha of the student on the teacher. And reciprocally, the teacher also doesn't have shraddha for the student. Swami Vivekananda says, very revolutionary statement he makes. We always talk about the shishya, the disciple having shraddha in the guru. He says the guru also should have equal shraddha in the disciple. All of you may be children, all of you are like my grandchildren. But I should know that you have a mind of your own, you have a heart of your own, you have a feeling of your own, you have an emotion of your own, you have a personality of your own. I should not roughshod your personality and then try to kill that personality which is your own precious thing. So I should nourish it, I should encourage it, I should see that you bloom in the wonderful personality. Just like you have a beautiful flower plant. You tend that plant and then add manure, pour water and affection and expose it to sunlight so that it grows and then gives you a beautiful flower. Every one of the students in a class is like a gentle flower plant, needs to be nurtured. And you can't roughshod it and push it into thinking about anything. I can only place ideas before you and you will grasp it, understand in your own way. Remember, the human mind is so delicate and so gentle, it can't be forced into thinking anything. And every human being is unique. There's another important idea which comes from science as well as philosophy. This is one of the most fundamental notions of science. Every particle in the universe has its own uniqueness. Uniqueness means there's nothing else in the universe which is like this particle. We have been told from childhood, you should be like so and so. They are called icons. They are called role models. A role model can be a cricketer, a role model can be a film star, a role model may be a politician, a role model may be a scientist, a role model may be a religious person. Even projecting Swami Vivekananda's role model will not ultimately help you. Vivekananda himself said, don't take me as a model. You are your own model. Once he said, I was trying to find out what is the ideal in my life until I found I am my own ideal. You are your own ideal. You can't be like anybody. You can be like yourself. That means every one of you has that capacity in you, that potential within you, that potential divinity and the potential perfection in you, and that your only effort He is to arouse that capacity to be able to actualize this ability and actualize it perfection. So you have to excel not in comparison with somebody else, not in competition with somebody else, but excel with respect to your own self. There are two kinds of excellences. We talk about excellence in education, excellence in everything. What is the excellence? One excellence is competitive excellence, aggressive excellence. He is scoring more marks, I should not see that, I outbeat you. So you try to excel in comparison and excel in aggression, which leads to conflict, which leads to acrimony, jealousy. And you are systematically nurturing it in the corporate world. The whole of corporate world is only competition, aggression, and combating with one another and coming up. What kind of society is this? That's a society for the animal world. Survival of the fittest and struggle for existence. Darwin's famous theories. They stop with the animal world. Once you cross to the human world and from there the superhuman, the divine world, cooperation is the only law. You can't compete with people and cut others' throat so that you can come up. So compete with your own self. You have an ideal before you, and at the moment I am here, far below the ideal. I will compete with myself and try to excel so that I can reach that ideal. Not that I am competing with somebody else, I will compete with my own self in order to reach that ideal which is within me. There is uniqueness in me, and that uniqueness will manifest in its own way. I will give you a simple example. Suppose you are a gardener. You are trying to create a rose garden. And you go to the nursery, purchase 10 rose plants, and you have a small bed of roses. And you are told this is the kind of soil that you have, this kind of manure, this much of water has to be poured, this much exposure to sunlight. Then you put everything there, you measure the whole thing, and then put the 10 plants, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Expose them to the same amount of sunlight, give them the same amount of water, and treat each of them with equal affection. Do you mean to say that all of them will grow in exactly the same way and give a beautiful rose flower exactly on the same day? Do you understand my question? Same treatment to all the plants, same food and same nourishment and same manure, same water, same exposure to sunlight and same affection. Obviously, you should expect that all of them will grow in exactly the same way. On a particular day, every one of them will bloom and then give you a beautiful rose. Do you think it's going to happen? No. Why? Because every one of these plants has inside the plant a principle which is unique. The principle of uniqueness in each of these plants will not allow you to have this. This is the bane of the modern technology, and it is useful also in some sense. Anyway, we have the capacity to ignore it. That is given to me and you. Now, each one of these plants will grow in its own unique way. What is happening? I am offering some manure and water and exposure to sunlight and all that. So each one of these plants is absorbing what I am offering to it in its own unique way, rejecting what it can't accept, assimilating what is accepted, and transforming itself into a beautiful rose plant. So this whole process, accepting, rejecting, assimilating, transforming. It's a series of steps through which it goes. Who does it? All this is being done with a principle within the plant which says I shall not accept this much of water, I will take only this much of sunlight. Each plant decides. You can't force one plant to exactly imitate another plant. Each plant is unique The uniqueness principle, which we call the Antaryamin, or the indwelling principle, the regulatory principle within that plant, it decides. You are giving me so much water, I shall take only half of it. The other plant says, you have given me this much, I want a little more. Who decides within these plants? There's a principle, the life principle within the plant, which is a mysterious principle which no science can discover. Science therefore says, I can give you the only general principles. We call this in scientific parlance as non-linear. Nothing in the world is linear. The whole thing is so complex, just like weather prediction. Why is it so difficult to predict the weather? The whole thing is highly non-linear equations. Non-linear equations, for those of you who have solved non-linear differential equations, you know how very difficult to solve non-linear equations. Even a supercomputer can only approximate and solve. Up to a point you can go. But there is a high amount of non-linearity when it comes to life. Life itself is extremely non-linear. You must have heard of Julian Huxley. He was a very great biologist. He wrote once a very fun, beautiful statement. Science can exactly predict the orbits of the planets and the nebulae. You can exactly say when the next solar eclipse is going to occur. Suppose I ask you after 1,000 years, what will be the position of the earth and the moon and the sun? You can now exactly say in the computer. Science can exactly predict the orbits of the planets and the nebulae and the moon and the stars. But no science can exactly predict the orbit of a common housefly or a mosquito. The mosquito is sitting there. Can any science predict what is the next orbit that's going to take? You can try this with mosquitoes particularly. Mosquito is sitting there. Sometimes I have seen. You carefully go. At that moment he escapes and goes there and looks at you, now what? That fellow is sitting there. No amount of technology can take me from here to there immediately. But the little tiny insignificant creature that God has created has the capacity to fly immediately to the roof and look at me with mischief. I'm helplessly looking at it, I can't do anything to you now. Suppose it can choose its own paths at random. There is non-linear. You can't predict. Life introduces something which is absolutely uncertain, unpredictable in the world. And that element, quantum physics discovered, also exists in the physical state. That's one of the revolutionary concepts in quantum mechanics and quantum physics, in which you said there is a probability, there is a non-linearity even built up in the world of fact. There is no absolute predictability at all, even in the quantum world, the micro world. That's it. Most of you must perhaps know. This is the big point of contention between Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr. The solving calculus. There's a big tussle. Einstein would not believe this. The probabilistic interpretation of quantum mechanics. Einstein said no. Everything is absolutely beautifully determined. Nature is perfect. He said, God does not play dice. God is playing dice. It could be 4, when you play by the game of dice, it could be 4, it could be 10, it could be 12. No. God exactly knows what is to be done. Niels Bohr could answer back, you can't dictate to God what he should do. ঠাকুর বলছেন তিনি ইচ্ছাময়ী ইচ্ছাময়ী মানে ইচ্ছা মতো অনেক কিছু করতে পারে ইচ্ছা মানে is he whimsical, is he unpredictable? In a sense, yes. You don't know. সেজন্য বলছেন না ঈশ্বরকে বলা যায় খাবার হাটে বাজার, you know the famous song by Ramakrishna. এই জগৎটাতে খাবার হাটে বাজার. It's a marketplace of mad people. That's why our Hindu gods are always pictured as mad people. Shiva is mad, Kali is mad. Khabar people is mad. The madness means what? Madness means mad people are the only people who are unpredictable. And the Parvus in the Duke Pode, Konkan is unpredictable. Suddenly he may smile, suddenly he may catch your throat, suddenly he may be very friendly, suddenly he may walk out, suddenly he may sleep on the floor. You can't predict how a mad person will behave at one point. So this non-predictability of the universal principle has been pictured by putting gods as mad people. The only madness has no logical, there is no logic behind it. You always are driven by logic. You always think we should always be logical. There is nothing logical in the universe. This is again a big point of debate. I think some of you must have read the Roger Penrose's book. The famous 3 books he wrote. One is The Emperor's New Mind, which is a counter to artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence people, they call AI. There's a strong AI and a weak AI. The strong AI people said, the human brain is absolutely algorithmic. It thinks algorithmically, it thinks logically, and once an algorithm is made, exactly it can be made to perform the tasks which I wish that it should perform. And therefore, computer can completely take charge of human intelligence, can replace human intelligence. But the counter is, no, the human mind does not think completely algorithmically. There is a kind of non-linearity, there is a kind of non-predictability, there is a kind of uncertainty about the whole thing. So the big tussle, the big debate in the televisions, etc., and Roger Penrose lost. He wrote the book Emperor's New Mind, which is a parody against Emperor's New Clothes. Some of you know Emperor's New Clothes? Ulanga Raja Kolkata. The Raja was very stupid. Most of these top people, kings, etc., they have a little brains, otherwise they would not have become so high. You can also see the present. They are always controlled by people who are slightly at the lower rung of the hierarchy, the mantris and the other ministers and the followers and others. So, just to fool this Raja, this king, the other ministers said, oh Raja, you look so fine, so beautiful, I am going to get a fresh pair of wonderful pair of shirt and pants for you. I am very extraordinary. But the beauty is nobody will be able to see it. It is so fine, so wonderful. Then the Raja was fooled. Then they stripped him totally and done some kind of magic there. Said, you look so wonderful in this clothes. Now come on, let's go walk. This fellow walking in the streets without clothes. Then everybody is applauding. Who will kill the Raja? It's very risky. Even now, you can't kill the top people. Then if you post it on the internet, then you are finished. So you say, how wonderful, etc. Then a small boy got up and said, hey, Raja, that's the story. You know the famous story. Emperor's new clothes. So he wrote a parody, Emperor's New Mind. That is Roger Penrose's first book. He begins with the following story. In the initial, the first chapter, before we begin the first chapter, the prologue. A super computer was discovered by one great scientist. It is going to be inaugurated. So many technocrats and scientists had all come there. And the scientist with great pride, he said, ladies and gentlemen, here we are going to inaugurate a supercomputer which is omniscience itself. It can answer any question in micro nanoseconds. It is the intelligence of God put into it. I have a novel way of inaugurating this computer. Any of you can put the first question. Then the computer will be activized and inaugurated. Nobody dared open the mouth. Who will appear stupid before supreme intelligence? So everybody kept going. All of us usually slightly grown-up people, they don't know, open their mouths for fear, they should appear stupid. Then somebody said with a joke, some people are usually very quiet, they talk less. Then somebody said, why is he not talking less? You know, the first time you don't talk, I will think that you are profound, you are so deep. Second time you don't talk, I will think you are very shy. The third time you don't talk, I will know that you are stupid. So everybody was terribly afraid. He don't know opening the mouth. Like the Ullagaraja, that story, Emperor's Clothes. Some small boy got him and, "Sir, I will put the first question, sir." And everybody thought, a small child, he does not know. He does not mind being stupid before omniscience and his supreme intelligence. "Oh, my child, my kid, come on, put the first question." Then he said, "I want to know from the computer, how do you feel to be a computer?" Then the computer went on calculating for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour, 1 hour. At the end of it, he said, "I don't know." There's a big roar of laughter everywhere. That is the story with which he begins. That means the computer is computing all that without knowing that he is doing it, which is called self-awareness. In Vedanta, we call it Atmapriyananda. That means you have no jnana, no knowledge about your own self. You are doing it without knowing that you are doing it. So they say there is a fundamental difference between doing something or saying something and being aware that you are doing it and saying it. So we should practice as enlightened human beings. When you do something, be constantly be aware that you are doing it. The self-awareness, the principle of self-awareness, which in Sanskrit we call it Sakshi Chaitanya. The Chaitanya, the spirit of awareness, which just witnesses everything which is going on. So unless you develop this awareness, you will be like animals and you will be like a computer, doing something without knowing that it is doing it. So this is the story of there's a Roger Penrose. So this idea that you develop something which is within you, that principle, which is called, what they call principle of uniqueness, which is so unpredictable, so uncertain, but at the same time, there is some fundamental principle which makes you feel, which makes you do something which is not replicable by anybody else. When you do something, you can't do it exactly the same way as somebody else. And even if you do the same thing again, it can't be exactly the same. It's very strange. Sometimes you know the actors, singers, they sing the same song, but it can't be exactly the same way you can't sing. There is some principle by which life will not allow the same thing to be repeated. It appears to be repetitive, but some principle within this. So if a plant, a rose plant, has the uniqueness principle by which it can throw up rose flower in its own unique way, how much more for human beings? This principle of uniqueness is fundamental science and technology. Have you heard of Pauli's exclusion principle? Oh, you must have read this in your schools or colleges. The very famous principle in physics. You know, Pauli was a great genius of a physicist. At a very young age, he discovered so many things. There's a funny story. When he was a teenage, he already held his father's hand to receive a great prize in physics in a conference. He was a great genius, Wolfgang Pauli. He was the person who discovered the neutrino. Neutrino is now it's a hot topic now. But the neutrino has a mass and does not have a mass. And he is the person who connected the spin and statistics. He said particles with half-integral spins will obey Fermi-Dirac statistics and therefore called fermions, and particles with integral spin will obey the Bose-Einstein statistics and called bosons. The Higgs boson is very much in the news now. So Wolfgang Pauli came up with a fantastic idea, which once again is based on the principle of philosophical principle of uniqueness. He said every particle in the universe is unique. In the grand design of God, there is nothing which looks exactly like another thing. There's 10 fingers you can take. Hundreds of thousands of people, how many crores of people are in the world? What is the world population? 60 crore? No. Sorry, 600 crore? Approximately that. Now, 600 crore of people each having 10 fingers. On average, let us assume. So how many? 600 into 10, 6,000 fingerprints. Crore. 6,000 crore fingerprints. Much less than Indian, the debt which India owes for us. Now, each one of these is completely different from another. The fingerprint people say, not one fingerprint can be matched with another. Not one of them. So how many patterns does nature have? Nature has innumerable hundreds of thousands of millions of patterns. One cannot look like another. This is the variety and the beauty or abundance of nature. So if you accept this principle, which is a philosophical principle, aesthetic principle. See, science, technology and philosophy, all of them have to proceed from aesthetics, from beauty. Satyam, Shivam Sundaram. That which is Sundara is also Satya. Truth and beauty always they coexist. That which is truthful cannot be beautiful. That which is truthful cannot but be beautiful. That which is beauty cannot but be truth. Now Wolfgang Pauli said, each particle in the universe is unique. And therefore, in the composition of an atom, if two particles are completely identical with regard to all their quantum numbers, one of them will be excluded from entering into the composition of the atom. I suppose you remember your school days of, this is taught in the schools or in the colleges, I don't know. Pauli's exclusion principle. I think that's it. So now, this is a very interesting idea. If there are two particles which are identical, suppose there is an advertisement in the God's website, in the Brahma's website, www.brahma.com, asking for applications from all the particles. So many atoms are going to be created, all the electrons and protons and all the particles can apply. So there are so many applications. Then you sort it out. If there are two applications which contain quantum numbers of particles which are exactly the same, you can select only one of them. That is Pauli's principle. No two particles in an atom can be completely, entirely identical with regard to all their quantum numbers. Why? Uniqueness. No particle in my body, no cell in my body can be exactly like cell in any other body. So what a wonderful principle. These are some certain simple philosophical and scientific principles which give us so much of elevation and thought. So why I am saying this is because if you understand this principle, you will know how to deal with human beings. If a small mosquito or a plant has its own uniqueness, how much dignity you should give to the plant or a cat or a dog or a mosquito or an ant. Because it's a unique creature of God. You can't trifle with it. This ant, this mosquito, this plant, this animal, what to speak of human being, is a unique creation of God, like a which doesn't exist anywhere in the world. It is uniquely created. And therefore you will feel, oh, there's nothing like it's a precious thing. Suppose you are given something, hey, you get this. There is no such thing in the whole world. This is the only one specimen which I got. Then how carefully you preserve the great dignity, great the respect and devotion you preserve this. So you see, every one of us is unique. So if you have this kind of feeling, whole education will change. The theory is that everything is unique. The practice is that human relationships will change, attitudes will change, your interactions will change. They will totally revolutionized because you look upon everything as something which is unique, something which is great, something which is directly created by the glory of God. If you believe in one. If you don't believe in one, replace it with nature. Nature has created this leaf, this flower, this twig, this ant, this a mosquito, this is the animal, this is the human being, as a unique creature, like which there is nothing else in the universe. So this theoretical idea of uniqueness translates in social life, in ethical life, in moral life, in societal life, has respect for the whole nature, respect for human beings, respect for all beings. So this is something which you have to pick up. If you are a scientist, if you are a technical person, if you are an engineer, if you are a thinker, if you are an educated person, then you can't behave with people in the way anybody behaves. You should behave with people because you know this is a unique person with whom I am interacting. So every moment of your interaction with everybody will give you a thrill of joy because you are interacting with the unique creation of God. Anybody coming to meet you, he is unique. There is nobody like this. You walk on the floor, this is unique. This plant is unique. This grass is unique. You can't destroy anything. You can't mishandle anything. You can't hate anything. Because you will be filled with the idea of majesty, the glory of the divine. So this idea of the theoretical knowledge that you possess, on the one hand, through science, and the technological part of it, the applied part of that theory on the other, both of them have to go hand in hand. This was discovered by the Indian thinkers long, long ago, by which they prayed together, the teacher and the disciple prayed together by saying that the Supreme Being should protect us by revealing to us the true nature of God, the theory behind it. And the Supreme Being should protect us by revealing to us the application of this knowledge in everyday life for the welfare of humanity. This is a great complementary to each other, theory as well as practice, science as well as technology. The science of Brahman, science of the Supreme Being, science of God is what we call Vidya. It's called Brahma Vidya. The word used in the ancient Indian wisdom is Vidya. Brahma Vidya is a science of Brahman. The technology is called Yoga. The word Yoga is very common these days. Yoga means technology. The technology of Brahman. That's why always the great scriptures say Brahma Vidya Yoga Shastra. Those of you who read the Bhagavad Gita, every chapter ends with a colophon. Colophon means the what it contains, what is the name of the chapter and what it is, etc. etc. Om Tat Sriti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Sambhade Sankhya Yoga Nama Tridiyodhyaya Karma Yoga Nama Tridiyodhyaya and so on. What does it mean? It is Brahma Vidya, science of Brahman, theory of Brahman, and Yoga Shastra, the technology, the practice of Brahman. Brahma Vidya Yoga Shastra, what is it? Sri Krishna Arjuna Sambhade, the dialogue between God and man. How do you get knowledge? You get knowledge from the divine. That divine is there within you, and then that throws up this knowledge. Knowledge does not come from anywhere outside. Knowledge from the divine source which is within, when your ignorance is slowly goes away. Why do you not get knowledge now? Because knowledge is covered by your sense of hatred and the negative feelings which you have. If you can learn to look upon the whole of nature as one divine manifestation, the supreme, majestic principle, the glory of God, then you will feel so much of knowledge is revealed to you at every moment. Most of the scientific discoveries have been done by a divine intuitive intelligence. Those of you who read the story of the double helix, Crick and Watson story, or the discovery, Kekule's discovery of the benzene ring. You know the story? It is mentioned by Roger Penrose. Kekule was a scientist who was very much worried about the structure of benzene. You know the aromatic compounds and the aliphatic compounds. Aliphatic structure is linear. The methane and the ethane and so on. So Kekule was conditioned by this linear structure, always worried about benzene. And he could not solve this problem. And he felt in the kind of a dream or a trance. And he saw a huge dragon made of carbon atoms. And this dragon opened its mouth and was biting its tail. Suddenly he said, that's a benzene ring which is cyclical in nature, the cyclic structure of benzene. It came in the form of intuition. Ramanujan, Srinivasa Ramanujan, the famous mathematical genius. You know how he used to discover these theorems? Hardy once told him, Ramanujan, how is it that you're able to come up with new theorems every day? He used to keep on writing new theorems in his notebook. Even now, Ramanujan's notebook are being researched into. Many of them, they have no proof. What is the proof of these theorems? Sir, proof? I say that they are correct. You see. You don't need to logically formulate. The seeing is called darshana. That's why in India, philosophy is called darshan shastra. Darshan means you see, actually see. Sri Ramakrishna was challenged by Naren, the future Vivekananda. How do you know God exists? Because I see Him. What can you say to this? What is the proof that all of you exist? Can you prove that these people exist? I see that they are existing. When you see something, how can you deny it? So Sri Ramakrishna said, I see Him. I see Him much more intensely than I see you, and I can show Him to you. So what do you do to this? Either you should be an absolute liar, or mad, or saint. You can't be anything in between. The person claims I have seen God, I have shown Him to you, and then say, who wants to see Him? People are shedding tears, jugfuls of tears for wealth and money and position and wife and children. Who can cry for God? If you really want Him, you will see. Just the seeing God is the only proof of God. Swami Vivekananda therefore said, what is the proof of religion? Proof of religion, you can see Him, you can experience it. If you say that you can't experience Him but it's written in some book, don't believe because somebody said. Don't believe it is written in the old books. Buddha and Jesus have seen God. So what? What is it to me? Can I see Him? That's why the Kathopanishad ends with the last mantra. You know, the story is between Yama and Nachiketa. Yama was the Acharya, was teaching the Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of God to Nachiketa. It ends by saying, this great wisdom was taught by the Acharya Yama to Nachiketa, who is the fittest disciple. And having received this, having been illumined and enlightened by this wisdom, Nachiketa became immortal and crossed over to immortality. And last sentence, anybody else also, anywhere in the world, at any time, can attain to this state of immortality, just like Nachiketa, provided he follows the same kind of discipline. That is the challenge of Vedanta. It does not say, somebody did it now, but it is not applicable anymore. The latest dialogue, no parivartita person, same thing is applicable, even now you and I, like Nachiketa can say. Mrityu proktam, Nachiketa, Mrityu proktam, Mrityu was telling him, Mrityu means Yama, Nachiketo talatva vidyametam yoga vidham cha krishnam, this vidya, Brahma vidya, and yoga vidya, the technology. Brahma prapto virado bhut vimrutyuhu. It becomes viraja, that means free from all blemish. Brahma prapto, having attained Brahman, vimrutyu, crossed over beyond death. Anyo evam yovidadhyatmameva. Anybody else will also be able to receive the same realization. This is the saving challenge. You can also do it now. That is science. Science says anybody, any scientist at any point of time has done this experiment and got this result anywhere in the world, then any other scientist should also be exactly able to get the same result anywhere at any time. If it does not happen, it is not science. It is some kind of mystery which cannot be solved. So this is an open challenge which Vedanta has given you, that it is possible and you can actually do it. You can also get it. So the theory is so vitally important to know, and the application is also equally important. There has always been a tussle with the theoretical science and the technology, the applied science. So I was talking about Ramanujan. I can see these are true. Then Hardy asked him, how can you see? How do you write on this? Sir, there's a secret behind this. the goddess, my Kuladevata of Namakkal, one place in Tanjore in Tamil Nadu, my Kuladevata comes and tells me in dreams, and I write down. He says, hey, get up, write this theorem. I write down. Hardy was simply confused. Then he said, this boy is a sheer mathematical genius, and hopelessly religious. There are so many mysteries in life over which science has no control. There is much more in philosophy of Horatia than the world can dream of, as Shakespeare said. There are so many things, so many mysteries in the world within us and outside us. This nature is such a mystery we don't know. Nature, science is struggling to understand just a particle of it, as Newton said. I seem to myself like a child playing in the seashore, picking up a pebble here and there, where the vast ocean of undiscovered truth is there before me. Einstein said, my religion consists of a humble adoration of the illimitable intelligence which our dull faculties can comprehend in the most primitive form. The vast illimitable intelligence which is running the affairs of the universe, how much can be grasped? Only we are simply mystified and overawed by this. When Einstein discovered the 1915, the famous general theory of relativity, that is a masterpiece in any scientific discovery for all time. And one of the predictions was a massive gravitational field, light bends its path. There is a bending of a ray of light and massive gravitational field. And nature, space itself is curved in the presence of matter. So these were revolutionary ideas. Could not be proved. Einstein calculated something is keeping quiet. After 4 years, 1919, Eddington, contemporary of Einstein, he went a big expedition during total solar eclipse to prove or disprove Einstein's theory. 29th of May, 1919, that was a famous day. Einstein, Eddington found Einstein's theory exactly tallied with the experiment. Eddington was also a very great physicist, astrophysicist. Somebody told Eddington, there's a beautiful book by Eddington, one of the old 1930s it was published, The Nature of the Physical World. Those of you who have not read it, please do. It's a remarkable piece of, it's a set of lectures which he gave. Such humor and such wit and such wonderful English. The language itself is so interesting. Somebody told Eddington, his name is Arthur Eddington, Arthur, you are one of the 3 people who have understood relativity. And he was sitting quietly thinking, don't be modest, Eddington, I mean what I say. Then he smiled and said, I am not trying to be modest, I am trying to find out who the third person could be. I can know that I know, but who nobody can understand relativity. That was Eddington. So he telegraphed Einstein, your theory has been proved to be right. Then one of Einstein's daughters, Einstein married the second time, the daughter from the first marriage of the second wife, she came and told Einstein, you know, your theory has been proved to be right. Einstein was sipping his lazy tea, smiled and said, but I knew all the time that it was right. Then she became very furious. What would have reacted? How would have reacted when your theory had been proved wrong? And Einstein again smiled and said, I would have been very sad for God, but I knew that my theory is right. Ishwara Gati Corona Batu, Kintami Janta Hamari ठीक. That is the confidence of a theoretical person. So why I am stressing this because now so much of technology is dancing on the stage, we are completely giving less place to theory. Unless you have very sound theoretical background and understanding, no technology can actually grow. This is happening in computer science particularly. The fundamental computer scientific, the mathematical basis is being slowly relegated to the background, and we are going only for applications and software. It's already saturated. Unless we go back and do fundamental computer scientific theoretical research, it can't grow. Theory is so so vital. And people who are theoretical are so confident about their theories. Just like I told you about this. There is a beautiful book by one Daniel. It's called Measuring the World. He talks about two characters. One is von Humboldt. You know Humboldt is a very famous applied scientist. And the other was Gauss. Gauss is a great mathematician as well as a theoretician. He pictures these two people side by side and talks about theory versus application. On the one hand, theoretical people are simply are confined in a small space, go on thinking about, like Ramakrishna writing the theorems, and Einstein is doing these calculations, for which India is justly famous. That's why India is doing so well in theoretical physics and theoretical fundamental mathematics and so on. Because India has always been absorbed in deep philosophical and mathematical thought. But in practical life they are absolutely failures. But you should have a combination of both theory and practice. So I was thinking about this Humboldt versus Gauss. And suddenly it struck me with an old Puranic story of Ganesha and Kartik. You know the story?